Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has resigned from his parliamentary seat of Clacton, triggering a by-election which he will go on to fight in. All of this follows allegations Farage had not properly declared support from longtime ally George Cottrell, which reportedly included payment for security as well as social media staff. Farage said he had done, quote, nothing wrong and will let the people of Clacton be the judges of his actions. Joining me now is barrister and UK broadcaster Andrew Eborn. Andrew, welcome back to the program. This is certainly
lovely to see you again.
Well, it's great to have you here. This is certainly a funny situation. He's triggering a by-election only to stand again in it. Are any of the other parties going to run against him, or is this his to take back?
Well, it is interesting, this sort of foray into Farage's finances, isn't it? But it's not simply a by-election. What it is, it's a battle over who defines the narrative. The legal issue concerns these declarations, and the political issue concerns legitimacy. But what's happening is all of the different parties are sort of turning around and putting two fingers up to him and say, well, we're not going to play your game. They call it a sort of fake by-election and so on and so forth. And the major parties doing exactly that. What happens? It's that I'm always reminded of the famous dead cat strategy. What you have to do is change the conversation before the conversation changes you. That's what he's trying to do. It's the oldest lesson in politics. Simply, if you can't win today's argument, what you do is create tomorrow's headlines. But all the papers are sort of turning around and saying, well, actually, this is a complete con, because what's happening is that nobody, other than two candidates who I'll mention, are basically going to play a game with Nigel. So he doesn't get that legitimacy. The two candidates, we have Count Binface, who's a comedian who will be standing. And also, I can exclusively tell to you, I spoke to the leader of the Monster Raving Loony Party, the wonderful Alan Howling Lord Hope. And you might remember him when we had Andy Burnham in that by-election, the predictable result there. He was the one who stood next to the podium. He had this wonderful white Stetson on, a wonderful white cowboy suit. And every time he used the word hope, because that's his surname, he said, yes, that's me. So he worked on that sort of basis. The Monster Raving Loony Party, I think I mentioned to you last time, it's a satirical party here in the UK. And in the King's birthday honours, they did their own honours. And they made me Lord Eborn, which is great. And County Board, and they also gave me this glorious T-shirt. There you go, you can see that as well. That's your actual recycled teenager. It is. I love the Monster Raving Loony Party. The interesting thing, as I say, is that nobody's playing ball. They all sort of turn around. The headlines are basically saying that this is a fake by-election. It's a political game. But what's interesting politically is the cost of this, because it's almost over £230,000 could be spent on this by-election. The electorate are going to say, look, what a waste of money. If you're only going up against Count Binface or the wonderful Monster Raving Loony Party, the taxpayers' money could have been saved. And the reality is this. What happens is you suspend the investigation once somebody stops being an MP, but it can be restarted once that election has happened if he's re-elected. I say if, probably when he's re-elected, unless the Monster Raving Loony Party get in. And the reality is this, it will then start the process again, which means another £230. Now, if I were a political opponent of Nigel's, and I know Nigel very well, have shared many TV studios with him, if I were a political opponent, I'm going to turn around and say, look, he's costing you money. And what's happening is, what he should do is shine spotlight on the allegations against him, which he denies, and say, look, these are my finances, this is what's happened, and be absolutely clear, because sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Well, I'm a great believer in that, but here's what Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, had to say. Have a listen.
Nigel Farage is having a hissy fit because the first time he's actually having to deal with some real scrutiny. What he needs to do is be honest about where his fishy £5 million came from. We're not standing a candidate in the fake by-election, which Nigel Farage is causing to distract people from what is happening.
You know, Andrew, I keep hearing people say that Kemi Badenoch is really cutting a very impressive figure at the moment, except the problem is that nobody is prepared to vote for her brand, the Conservatives, the Tories, which is so tremendously tarnished. Do they have any hope out of this mess in this by-election of maybe regaining some of their old support, or is it still reforms to walk away with?
Well, the turquoise tidal wave, as I call it, I think as sadly King Canute has sort of stepped in and trying to stop that. Kemi's popularity is great when you hear in Prime Minister's question time. She's very incisive in her questions and so on and so forth, compared to the wishy-washy grey Keir Starmer. And as I said beforehand, it's basically personalities are basically taking precedent over policies. We looked at the recent by-election where Andy Burnham, again, who I've known for a while, is a wonderful personality, but people voted for him. It was a positive vote for him rather than for the Labour Party. And the last election that we had over here, basically that was a vote against the Tories rather than a vote for Labour. Labour's policies are basically at an all-time low because they keep U-turning. And so the trust basically in those sort of policies and people's promises has degenerated. And I always say, look, trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. And what we need are people who can basically galvanize people, the electorate behind them, say, look, this is somebody we believe in. This is a personality who can dominate and deliver for us. And it's all about that delivery. It's not about sound bites. It's not about empty promises. It's not about U-turns. And we've had so many of those from the Labour government. It's actually about people who will deliver. And time will tell. Andy Burnham himself, he could be Prime Minister within a matter of days. I think the earliest is the 17th of July, if there's nobody going to be standing against him, and that seems increasingly likely. Nominations are about to open over here, but we will see. But as I say, Kemi is doing very well. The Conservatives are not doing so well, and basically it's the same with Andy Burnham. He's doing very well, but Labour are doing atrociously.
Absolutely right, they certainly are. Well, we'll have to save questions about Keir Starmer's long goodbye for next time. Andrew Eborn, thank you so much for joining me as always.
It's always a pleasure. See you next time.